private mode and go ahead and welcome our guest. Good afternoon to everyone who is here for our Where's the Money for College workshop. My name is Andrea Leonard. I am the founder of Education Prep Plus and the Chief College and Career Consultant. I want to welcome you to our first webinar. This is a joint webinar with our friends at the Office of Federal Student Aid. And what we're going to do this evening is give you some valuable information about federal resources as it pertains to college, grants, loans, the FAFSA. Hopefully we have high school students, parents, and community members in the room who are preparing to send students off to college. A little bit about Education Prep Plus, and then I'm going to pass it off. So Education Prep Plus, what we do is we specialize in college and career counseling for students, families. We often partner with schools and organizations to go over financial aid awareness, college preparation, creating competitive college applications, and absolutely doing a lot of scholarships. We'll get more into that later on my part of the presentation. At this time, I want to introduce Mr. Isaiah Ellis. He is an outreach specialist for Federal Student Aid.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you for affording us the opportunity to be here and for all that you do for the community. As she stated, my name is Isaiah Ellis. I'm with the Office of Federal Student Aid. We're located here in DC, but we do have reach everywhere across the United States. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the FAFSA. Let's talk about the FAFSA process, different federal financial aid programs. I'm going to touch on satisfactory academic progress, as well as I'm going to get into some of your question and answering. Some of the information will be a deep dive into what I believe that you would probably need to know as you're going along this process. And I'm aware that some of you are well into this process, as well as some of you have begun the process, and some of you are looking back and maybe wanted to restart the process. So we want to make sure that we cover enough information with the time that we are given. So this presentation will last about 40 minutes, and then I'll open it up for as many questions that you may have, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. Just as an overview, students need to complete a FAFSA each year. And it's important that you understand that, because a lot of times when students are thinking about college, they're thinking about it, this is the amount of time I have to go, but they don't realize that the dollars that they're tied to, whether it's scholarships, whether it's grants that are tied to the FAFSA, that application needs to be in each individual year. As you're going into college and you're going to your second year or your third year or your fourth year, you need to understand that you have to complete the FAFSA each year. Now, there are little small changes that come inside of the FAFSA, so you want to make sure that you are aware of that. But if you always have any questions, you can always visit the financial aid office at the school you are planning to attend or go back to each year. And when you think about completing it, you also have to be aware of deadlines. It's important to truly understand that, because sometimes your state dollars, which is funding that's coming from your state government, or you may have your scholarship dollars that are at the institution level that is tied to the FAFSA, and or grant funding, they may have a deadline where you need to complete the FAFSA. So while you're thinking, you know what, my state deadline, let's say if you live in Maryland, and that state deadline for many of their financial aid programs happens to be March 1st. So if you apply, if you submit the FAFSA on March 2nd, you may disqualify yourself from actually getting funding from the state on certain programs. But however, if you apply early and you meet that deadline, let's say, for example, when students complete the FAFSA and the FAFSA opens up on October 1st, that they come into a situation where, okay, I completed it October 2nd. You know what? You not only meet the deadline of your state, but you also meet the other subsequent deadlines that do exist depending upon their program. So you want to look at a school, look where it's located, and try to understand and try to research exactly how much scholarship funding or scholarship opportunities, how many grant opportunities, and other pieces of financial aid that you may be eligible for, but also understand when is that FAFSA has to be completed by. But keep this in mind. that with several programs and many of the programs, they have also additional documentation that is required. So because of that, you also not only want to complete the FAFSA, but you also want to understand that they may have additional documentation and that may be due at a certain period of time. However, with that said, there are also individuals that are maybe can be considered undocumented and may not qualify for the FAFSA. And we'll get into a bit more citizenship later. They may not have to complete a FAFSA, but may have to complete a separate application issued by whether the state organization that is providing the funding. So what they have to do is look to see when are those documents due, when is that application due, and make sure that they complete that process by the deadline. Because if they don't, then they may be considered ineligible as well. And you want to make sure, again, that you're completing it by the earliest possible date. When you also factor in the FAFSA itself, you also have to see, hey, look, I have to complete a FSA ID. Now, do you have to? Not really, because at the end, if you don't wish to create an FSA ID, you can still complete the FAFSA, print out the student aid report, and sign it and send it in to us. But it makes the process a lot longer in that case. A FAFSA ID is an identifier, which enables you to see exactly what's going on with your profile. And I'll get into exactly what that profile looks like. But it's an easy way for you to sign the FAFSA and send it in, and then go back into the FAFSA and go ahead and get it processed and enjoy all the perks that come with that. But when you're thinking about the FAFSA ID, parent, if you're a parent and you have 3 children, you only need one. If you are a student, regardless of how many other siblings you have, you only need one. It's one per individuals. So if you're a parent and you have several different students that complete the FAFSA, you're just going to use your one FSA ID to complete each FAFSA. You don't need to create a new one. All you're using it to do is sign the FAFSA for the student that is applying for federal student aid. And then when you complete the FAFSA, sign it off, you're going to get what's called a student aid report. That's going to list any federal aid that you're eligible for. Now, if you look at that student aid report, it has a lot of great information on it. But what it's not going to tell you is how much state aid you may be eligible for, how much institutional aid you may be eligible for. That's going to be issued directly by the institution. And the best part about that is that if you feel that award letter does not truly reflect your financial status or your standing, if you feel that award letter may be missing something, you can always have a discussion regarding that award letter with the financial aid office. There are some cases where they may look and they may say, you know what, you're right. And we're going to make sure we increase the amount of money that your student is eligible for. Because what award letter has on it is any state aid that your student is eligible for that the school is aware of, any institutional aid, any student loans or any other federal loans that the student is eligible for, as well as any other financial aid programs that the student is eligible for. So you want to make sure you're having that conversation with the financial aid office, because if you're coming into a situation where it's not reflected on the FAFSA and you let them know and they increase the dollars, that's more money that you don't have to come out of pocket with. And then, but as this also pertains to the FSA ID, you can use this ID to sign in or sign the FAFSA. You can use this ID to check how much student loans you have taken out, to check exactly how much Pell Grant eligibility you have left if you're eligible. You can also use it to project exactly how much your loan is going to cost you per month with interest. And you can also use it to also get in and see exactly what you have taken out to date. So how do you create an FSA ID? Well, the steps are before you. You enter your email address, your create a username and password, enter your name and date of birth and social security number. And so this is a way for you to have an identifier to be able to use to not just sign the FAFSA, but to also see exactly what your financial profile is as you are going on. So if you see you're taking out a little bit more loans than you would have liked, well, maybe it's in your interest to go ahead and see how much scholarship funding you can get. Talk with the financial aid office. Talk with the college that you are enrolled at, or the college within the university that you're enrolled in. It's good to have this discussion as you're going along your process, because what you'll come to find out is that a lot of institutions have what's called endowed scholarship programs. And these endowed scholarship programs afford an institution or a college within an institution department to be able to provide students additional dollars outside of the normal financial aid process. So if you're a current student and you say, I need a little bit of additional funding, well, talk to the financial aid office, talk to the English department, whichever department that you are enrolled in, or in college you're enrolled in, and ask them, do you have any endowed scholarships, and how can I apply for those? Because you'll start to find that a lot of institutions have over billions of dollars in their endowment, but it's really difficult to find students that are eligible. But as it pertains to the FSAID, that was a little bit of a nugget, a little bit of more information that I know that many of you are grateful for. So it relates to the FSAID. When it comes to submitting the FAFSA, make sure that the document is signed by the parent only if the student is considered a dependent student. If a student is not considered a dependent student, then the parent does not have to sign the FAFSA at all. So if we are not asking for the parent signature, or the parent decides to sign or to submit the FSAID, then you don't need to ask the parent for it. And this is primary for students that are considered independent. Now, you have this FSAID and you're ready to complete the FAFSA, but you haven't been accepted into a school yet, whether you're transferring or enrolling for the first time. That's completely fine, because we're looking at the information you're going to provide here. We're not factoring whether or not you have chosen a school. No, all we're asking you to do is what schools are on your mind. We don't look to see whether or not you applied to, you've been accepted into, or rejected into.
Hey, Isaiah, I'm not sure if you're still talking. I think our mic went out. There's no sound. Isaiah, are you there? Check. Isaiah? Okay. Not quite sure what happened with Isaiah's sound, but I can speak to this part until he's able to get the sound back. So where he has stopped at is with the FAFSA, there's a certain criteria for students to be considered independent. A lot of times we may run into students who for some reason they are not in communication with their parents, not speaking with their parents, temporarily not living with their parents, but there has to be certain criteria to be considered independent. Isaiah, are you back? We can't hear you.
I'm back by popular demand.
Okay, great. All right, I'm stepping out. You got it. I'm muting.
What is the criteria as we look at dependent versus independent? Well, dependent means if you can answer yes to any one of the lists before you, that means that the student is considered independent. However, if you answer no to any one of these options, then a student is considered dependent, and we will need the parents' information. It's important to understand that, because as we're looking for your parents' information, we're looking for their finances, we're looking for their financial, we're looking for their names and other information, as well as their marital status, to sort of see exactly what is their financial profile. And so we take that information and we apply it to the students, and it's part of the calculation that as we're trying to see exactly how much the student is eligible for. And when we're looking at parents, we understand we're in different times. So we're primarily looking at parent one and parent two. If you have parents of the same gender, that's fine. We're just looking at a parent one and parent two. So many want to know, well, what happens? Can two parents who are divorced apply for the FAFSA for the same student, or could two parents you list on the same FAFSA form? Well, those are two-part questions. Number one, the FAFSA ID is for one parent. So regardless if they're married or regardless if they're divorced, it's for that one parent, and that one parent is going to stick with them. Now, as it relates to the FAFSA form, the parent that you list on the FAFSA form, it really just depends. If they're divorced, it's where the student is living. So if the student is living with parent one, then that's the information that we're asking. We're not asking for parent two. Now, if they are biological parents residing in the same household, they do not have to be married. In fact, both of their information will be required, but that's the only situation where we're requiring both if they're unmarried, if they're living in the same house. Now, let's say parent one divorced the parent, moved out of the house, and got remarried. Well, we're going to need the information from that step parent, not the parent that they were divorced from. So we have the student, the parent, and the step parent. That's the only information that we do need. Now, what about if my parent was never married? Again, if they don't reside in the same house as the biological parents, we don't need their information. But let's say parent one is now has a boyfriend or girlfriend, and the child is living with parent one. We don't need the boyfriend and girlfriend's information. We just want the parent and the student. They have to be married for us to include both information. But if there are a situation where the parent one or parent two passed away, and now parent one or parent two is considered widow, well, we only need the information from the surviving parent. Okay. Now we a couple of different information as it pertains to the FAFSA. We want to know information on the day of when you're completing the FAFSA. If you just got paid and you're completing the FAFSA and you looking at your bank account, it's just $2,000. You're excited, but if you're a parent, you know it's going to go really quick. What you should do is look at your net balance for the previous 6 months and average that out, and that's what you're going to put on the FAFSA. Because if you just got paid today, you're about to pay rent. So you may at 8 o'clock just about to complete the FAFSA, and you're right after this, you have in your mind, you're going to pay rent, you're going to pay mortgage. You have other things that you have, your important things, whether it could be healthcare related. Look at your net balance for the previous 6 months, and then average that out, and that's going to be what you put inside of your assets under the balance of your accounts. Also, when you're thinking about if you have any questions with us, you always contact us anytime at 1-800-4FED-AID with any information as relates to the FAFSA itself. But you'll always call the financial aid office as well of schools you've been accepted into. And the reason why you're going to hear me as we go forward always talk about the financial aid office, because you want to cultivate that relationship, because there may be funding that they may know about that you may not be aware of that they can match you with. As well as there's going to be the individuals that if you are selected for verification, if you do have to submit documentation as it relates to any state aid programs or institutional funding, they're going to be the ones you have to contact in relation to that. So what you want to do is make sure that you are contacting them, that you are in constant discussion with them, because if you
All right, the audio went out again. So until Isaiah can get his audio to join us, I'm going to carry us forward. The next part that he is going to speak on is reviewing the student aid report, also known as the SAR. Once students and families have completed the FAFSA, it takes a few days to process. And then after it's processed, you get a notification in your email saying that your student aid report or your SAR is ready. The student aid report really gives a glimpse of what it looks like as far as funding for college based on your income, based on a plethora of things. And what I'd like to make sure that I tell students and families is that it is not a bill. I don't want to jump too far because I don't know when Isaiah can reconnect. But the biggest thing that you take away from the student aid report is the EFC, and that is the expected family contribution. The EFC usually determines, not usually, the EFC determines your Pell Grant eligibility, as well as what it may look like as far as going forward with scholarships, receiving loans, et cetera, et cetera. So with your student aid report, you have the student aid report, you have the EFC. You also find out if you were selected for verification. Isaiah, are you back?
I'm back. I feel like I'm back in the 1990s where if someone picked up the phone and dialed and then knocked you off the internet and your grandmother got upset at you. Yeah.
It's all right. I'm prepared. Whenever you go out, I'm going to jump in. I'm giving it back to you. Where I stopped was I was going to get into the EFC. So
Yep.
you can pick it up. I'm out.
So for us, as we say, us old heads, we get that joke. And she's right about the EFC. And so the EFC is not how much you have to pay. Is not because you haven't even received a bill from the institution yet. So all it's uses is as an index number to dictate or determine how much money you may be eligible for. Just imagine this: you have a zero EFC, and a financial aid professional, college act professional takes that information, looks at it on a chart, and says, "Okay, a person with a zero EFC can receive up to the maximum amount of a Pell Grant, the maximum amount of a state financial aid program award that they can receive." But also, they look at that EFC and say, "Okay, well, this student is eligible for this amount of scholarship that's tied to the FAFSA itself." So it's not what you have to pay. And sometimes an individual with an EFC of a 99999 can go to school for free if they were able to get a scholarship to be able to fund their education. If you have an individual with the EFC of 1,000, just go to school without having to pay out of pocket. So when you look at the student aid report and you look at that EFC, don't be scared. I don't want you to get worried. Your next step should be contact the institution that the student has been accepted into, and to have a discussion with their financial aid office about what it's going to cost. There are also net price calculators on each institutional website that you can visit to see what is the estimated amount that it would take for to go to this institution, as well as if you visit studentaid.gov, you can also check out the net price calculators on FSA's website as well. Now, as it pertains to the EFC, it's used primarily to determine how much grant funding you're going to be receiving, but also is used to determine how much work study the student is eligible for. And I encourage students to take advantage of work study because it can give you work experience, but it also could give you a means of earning income, even if it's $100 or $150 a week that you didn't have to before, that you weren't receiving before. But it's also borrowed money, the subsidized and unsubsidized loan. You have the subsidized loan, which is up to $5,500 depending upon your class. Basically, it starts out at $3,500 as a freshman, $4,500 as a sophomore, and then it increases to $5,500 for your juniors and senior year. You have the unsub, which is $2,000. Now, let's say, for example, you say, okay, well, what's the difference between the two? What is subsidized does not accrue interest, so until 6 months after you stop going or have graduated. So let's say, for example, you have gone to college, you're taking out $3,500, and now you graduated. 6 months later, the bill coming due. You're gonna have to start with, then the interest is going to start to accrue at that point. But if you pull it out of the pocket, say, hey, look, I'm gonna give you $3,500 back, you can do that. Now the unsubsidized loan starts to accrue interest while the student is in school, which means that $2,000 will start to accrue interest, or the interest on it will start to build, which means that the student owes more. Now parents have an option too as well. It's called a Parent Plus loan. The Parent Plus loan is a loan that the parent would take out on the behalf of the student. Now, many times parents get to the financial aid office not having been afforded the opportunity to learn about this process, and then they're faced with a decision to take out $5,000, $10,000. And they say yes, without thinking that the student may be there for 4 or 5 years, which means that they're not just taking out $5,000. At the end of it, they may be responsible for paying back $25,000 to $30,000. So that's a decision the families and you as a family will have to make, but it's just to give you more context and information as it relates to that. Because if you are declined for the Parent Plus loan, then the $2,000 of the unsubsidized loan then is increased to $6,000. So which actually gives the student more funding. That will remain in the student's name. But just to be clear, the Parent Plus loan is in the parent's name. And of course, there's scholarship, there's earned money. Some schools operate on tier systems, which just means that sometimes they'll say they'll give students anywhere between $5,000 and $30,000 that academically qualify. But if they're the higher the EFC, the more likely they'll get towards the 5. But if they're the lower the EFC, the more likely they'll get towards the higher end. So keep that in mind as well. But just to recap on that, make sure you provide information on the day of. Make sure you list those 10 schools. Once it's been processed, if you have 10 more schools you want to add, you can do so. Make sure you call us if you have any questions, and make sure, as you heard me throughout this entire webinar, reach out to the financial aid department because they're always willing to help. Now let's break down award letters real quick, just to give you an understanding about what you can do. So you have the cost of attendance, which is the tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation costs, miscellaneous expenses. Every school has a cost of attendance. This is what they're telling us, the federal government, as well as the state government. This is what it costs to go to our school. Different schools have different costs of attendance. Let's say, for example, in this case, it's $50,000. Then someone comes and they say our EFC is $10,000. Well, the school is going to look at it and say the financial need is $40,000. So we're going to try our best to find a student $40,000 of need-based aid. And that can be in a mixture of grants. It could be in a mixture of certain types of scholarships. It could be a mixture of a number of different financial aid programs. So when you look at that, that's why we don't want you to rush to judgment. When you look at the EFC on your student aid report and you say, well, it's $1,000. I don't even have $1,000 in my bank account. How on earth are we going to pay for this? No, let the schools tell you exactly what you have to have, what they have to offer to you, what the student is eligible for, and then start the conversation there. If your student, if you are already in college, then you want to make sure you look at that award letter, go to the financial aid department and have a discussion with them. Sometimes you have individuals that were impacted by COVID-19, where they're unemployed, and in the outlook is that you're going to remain unemployed for a long period of time. You start that conversation at the financial aid office. Now, also, if you're looking at a high cost of attendance, let's say, for example, you're trying to choose between 3 schools, school 1, school 2, school 3, and the cost of attendance is $40,000, $50,000, and $60,000. Well, many people will say, I'm going to go with the $40,000 because that's within my budget. Again, wait till the school tells you exactly what they can provide to you. Because if a school comes to you and they say, well, you know, we're at $60,000, but we'll pay for your entire education, that means your out-of-pocket costs are zero. So make sure you wait and hear what they have to say. Now, there is something called satisfactory academic progress. That's important to understand because as you're going or matriculating through school, you're being evaluated against a couple of different things. Number one, how many classes you started or you enrolled and how many did you actually complete? Let's say, for example, we have a student that took about 15 credit or 12 credits. They're considered full-time, but they only finished 1. These were 3 credit courses, which means that they did not complete 75% of their courses. Well, many schools have different policies or satisfactory academic progress. That student may be placed on academic probation, and because they didn't complete the number of credits, they can also be placed on financial aid probation. Now, it can also exist where, let's say the student completed all of their classes, but their GPA was a 1.0 or below the threshold of the school. Well, that can also place a student on academic or financial aid probation just by that completion or that grade point average as well. But just understand that it can differ from school to school. So if you're planning on enrolling at a school or you're at a school, find out that what their SAT policies are, private processes are. Because when life happens and things do happen, you want to make sure you understand what are your next steps. If you have to withdraw from a course, Contact your academic advisor, contact the financial aid office and the registrar. See exactly what can you do to not have it counted against you. Because if you pass a certain point, which is typically 60% of a traditional school academic year, then you're liable for the aid that was dispersed. So you want to make sure you're having that conversation and keeping people in the loop. But there are tools that help you along the way. For example, there's studentaid.gov, which we are redesigned, and we're happy for it because we're customizing it according to your activity, according to what your feedback has been. So we want to make sure that we're telling you exactly we're giving you the information that you do need. We also have ways that for you to, if you're considering schools, this is primarily for those of you that are on the forefront and you're saying, I'm about to go to college, I've graduated, I'm the class of 2019 or 2020, or you could be even about to be the class of 2021 or beyond. This will be great information for you if you're considering schools. We also have information for those of you in school, ways that you can apply for the as the promissory note, do your interest counseling or your exit counseling. And that's important because in order for any type of loan that's provided by a loan servicer that's a partner of the federal student aid, you want to make sure you have to complete that process because that's the only way it's going to be dispersed. But also, it will give you you can estimate your loan repayment as well as sign a teach grant. Now, the teach grant is for those students that are interested in teaching. They can receive up to a $4,000 grant to assist them in their cost of going to that college or university. Keep this in mind. If you decide to take the teach grant, that's fine. But if you decide to switch majors, that teach grant becomes a loan. So typically we see students applying for that in their junior or senior year when they know they're going to become teachers. But also understand is that depending upon the state that you live in, the state the state authority or higher education authority may have funding to help you go to school and become a teacher. And in some cases, it'll pay for all your costs, the cost of attendance, which means your tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation costs. It'll help pay for that as well. We also have information for students, for parents, those that have children that are going to school, help you understand the process as well as apply for the Parent Plus loan as well. And we also have information for those that are repayment, those that have finished school, information to help them be able to understand what they have taken out, what are their repayment costs, what kind of programs can they be eligible for, as well as information on public service, loan forgiveness, as well as loan delinquency and default as well. And we also have additionally, in case you're going across the website and you don't fit exactly in that, you're just looking for something specific, you can go ahead and check it out and hit the magnifying glass and look up information as well. But we have new enhancements coming out, primarily around focusing on tailoring and bringing everything in. Why is that important? Because the best part of our products, and when we say products, we mean the FAFSA.gov, the studentaid.gov, my student aid, is that all of this isn't contingent on your credit score. We're not looking at that. We're not looking to see whether or not you have a credit score of 540 or 480 or 640. We're not looking to see whether or not you have 6 cars or 4 houses. We're not looking at that. We're trying to provide you information to be able to so you can move forward and make the best financial decision and get access to most funding as possible. So what does that mean? Well, let's say, for example, you go through the process which we just dictated. You complete the FSA ID. You're excited about that because you're going to need that to sign on to each one of these devices. That particular FSA ID, the only thing that we're looking at right now is if you are a citizen of United States or an eligible non-citizen. Why is that important? Because sometimes you come across students that would not even go remotely go on their phone and complete a FAFSA. They don't want to create a FSA ID because they feel they are not considered a citizen. Well, it's important that they understand their citizenship, because sometimes you come across students that are citizens, but their parents are not. It's okay if their parents are not. Again, what they're going to do is enter zeros in their section when they get to the FAFSA, and then they're going to go ahead and sign the student aid report and send it in to us. If a student is considered an eligible non-citizen, which means that they obtain their green card, which means that they are considered by the Homeland Security to be eligible non-citizens, or SSA, then it's important that they understand that they're eligible for federal financial aid, and they can complete the FAFSA. They can go, you can sign into my student aid or studentaid.gov. But if they are not citizens of the United States, then what they want to do is contact their state higher education authority, because they may still be eligible for other aid, enough aid to help them pay for college. So there's two different steps. But as it pertains to that, we're not looking at any type of citizenship status, financial status as it pertains to creating the FSA ID. So any of you can go inside of the FSA ID, create one. Once it's created, then you can make sure you can use it to sign the FAFSA, sign it to My Student Aid, or sign it into studentaid.gov. Now, why is all of this? There's three different things going on. It all sounds like a lot of information. You have My Student Aid, you have Student Aid, you have FAFSA. This is just trying to keep all the information in one centralized place. And that's the focus that we took, and what we're currently launching right now is a new consolidated website that's having everything consolidated all in one area. And it's important to understand that, because with this information now, everything's becoming personalized, connected directly to you. Students to be able to get customized updates as to what's have you completed the FAFSA? You started, you might want to do it. Your state deadline is coming up. So it's giving them, that one thing they've been missing was that notification to let them know they need to do this, they need to do this. And you could also sign up for notifications for our emails as well, so you can be in the know as well. Now, we also have where students, when they go inside and they're creating an account with FSA, again, this is all tying into the student's profile. So we can keep things centralized, so we can make sure students are getting the information they need, the information they want, and the information to help them keep moving forward. When you also remember when I started at the beginning of the webinar, and I stated that there was a personalized dashboard that you'll be able to look at exactly where you are, how much you're going to is projection. What we also did was we brought in some tools where students, when they get in front of the dashboard and they're looking at their total financial profile of going to college and what it have cost them thus far, they can look at now the major and see whether or not how many students that are enrolling in this major, how much student loan debt are they in? Is this particular major realistic for me? If I'm willing to go inside of this major, if I know on the outset I'm going to have to take $100,000 in loan, I might be a little bit more motivated to do that if I go through the process and I'm at least $80,000 to $90,000 job is waiting for me when I get out. But if I determine that only a $5,000 or a $20,000 or $4,000, $40,000 waiting for me, that doesn't look like a good investment for me. So you want to make sure that we look at that, because then you can start evaluating, okay, if I take out $40,000, my monthly payment might be $400 to $500. My income might yield me about $2,000 or $4,000 a month. You know what? I can afford that if I I'm making other decisions where I'm going to live and so forth. But you're also looking at it from a debt ratio. Okay, well, how much income to debt do I have? Is it 2:1? Is it do I have 15 with my net over there is about $40 or $400? The thing is that when you're evaluating this on your own, we're just giving you the tools, the data to show you what other people have done. But you make that determination at the end of the day on your own. But this tool will be able to give you that look and say, okay, you know what? I think I can go ahead and accept that income to debt ratio. So just keep that in mind. Now, we also have updated features. Again, we'll provide you with the next steps. We'll let you know exactly what your role is when you sign in, whether you're a returning student, new student. And we also provide you checklists to help you along the way. We also provide push notifications. And the best thing about that is that having that push notification aspect to it, which reminding you, hey, look, you might want to do X, Y, and Z. If you start the FAFSA, if you need to complete the FAFSA, it gives you that reminder in your phone, on your phone, so you can be able to make informed decisions quickly. We also have information. You can complete the FAFSA. We send, whether or not your phone is locked, we still send you push notifications. We also have where you submit the FAFSA, you can also look at your student aid report right on your phone. And this is all available now. So we also want you to connect with us as well. Number one, we have social media. We have the website. You can chat live with an agent, or you can call us at 1-800-4FED-AID. So you can email us anytime, and we'll get back to you within 48 hours. So there are ways to connect with FSA. And the one thing I can always say when it relates to connecting with us, we're very responsive. There's a lot of information, but if you have a specific question, I do recommend either emailing us or calling us. If you send a tweet, it might be delayed. If you connect with us on Facebook and you write information, do not put your personal information on any social media. Call us or email us. We also have our Facebook page. As you can see in front of you, like us, like our page, and make sure you drop us a comment. We also have a Twitter page. Please follow us and share the information. We have videos. We have infographics that we always trying to educate the community on what information is coming out as it pertains to FSA. We're also on YouTube with new videos. We're dropping new videos every month. So we're really excited about that. So if you like our video, please feel free to subscribe. And we do have a blog where we try to provide information that we believe will be helpful depending upon where you are. We have our writers. They write about 5 steps or 5 tips for students. They write about 5 tips for parents. They write about tips for students that are currently in college, that are looking to go to grad school. So we have abundance of information that we're always excited to provide as well. And we do have an information center. And when students, if you're looking for information and you haven't heard back, let's say it's been 24 hours, or it could be even 5 minutes. You want to find out, is there an answer to your question? You can go to our information center, enter your question or enter the topic that you're looking for, and you might find that question was answered before. If it's very specific to where we have to pull up the account, you might want to wait till we hear back from us. However, we always invite you to check out our FSA Information Center as well. And at this time, I'd like to just turn it back over to Andrea so we can start getting into the next area of our webinar.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. As you know, I've been in our webinar room, but also visiting YouTube to make sure that our YouTube subscribers who are watching now get their questions answered. So I did transfer some of those questions over to the webinar. I think you've already answered some of these. However, it's just maybe 2 or 3. The first question comes from Janetta. Can 2 parents who are divorced apply for, she meant the FAFSA, apply for the FAFSA for the same student?
No, it only has to be one parent if they are divorced in normal circumstances. The only circumstances where is a unique situation is that if they're divorced and still living together and they're biological parents. So there's a 3-part to that question, to that answer. If they're divorced, if they're still living together, and they're biological parents. Under those circumstances, we will need one FAFSA from the student listing with information from parent 1 and parent 2. Now, if they are divorced and one parent moved out and the student is living with one parent, we're just going to need the information from the parent the student is living with, not the other parent that the parent 1 was divorced from.
Okay. The next question, I know you went into great detail about this, is how is the FAFSA approved? Does it look at current debt ratio? You actually went over that.
So the FAFSA itself is we evaluate many things on the FAFSA. We look to see, citizenship. We look to see what income information, asset information. It's not necessarily an approval state. As long as you're a U.S. citizen and you're not in default of any loans, not the loan, that part will be determined by the institution. Typically, EFC will be given unto you. You be used that to determine how much aid the student is eligible for. The aid part of it is coming from many different sources. It can be coming from the state agency or the state higher education authority. It can be coming from the college university that the student has been accepted into. When aid is coming from the federal government, the Pell Grant is if the student is eligible for a Pell Grant, that is issued through us. If a student is eligible for a student loan, while it is a subsidized or unsubsidized, that is actually issued through a loan servicer. So with the document, the FAFSA itself is just getting a snapshot of your life and then saying, okay, this is where the person is. There are certain questions that are not asked on the FAFSA. There's responsibility for the financial aid department to sort of fill in that gap, because they'll be able to access additional documentation that we can't access right now, that only states be able to access. So you want to make sure that you understand the FAFSA approval part of it is not really an approving document. It's more of a statistical document to determine, okay, what aid is used to determine what aid you're eligible for. And as it relates to the question about the current debt ratio, that's not something we look at. Yes, that's evaluated when a parent is applying for the Parent Plus loan, but as it pertains to other aid, is not something that the federal government is looking at for the debt to income to determine eligibility for particular programs.
Okay. The next question is, what happens to the financial aid offered if you defer?
So that's a good question. It depends on how did you defer. Did you defer it on a semester or trimester? Because if you defer it to the following year, in some cases, if it's based upon income or based upon evaluation through the information provided through the FAFSA, then you'll have to resubmit that information for the following year, and you may or may not be eligible. But if it's a scholarship, like an academic scholarship or athletic scholarship that's issued through a college or university, they can defer that, and then you go past you go enroll the following year. Now, what if you tell the financial aid department, I just want to take the first semester off. I don't want to start in the fall. I want to start in the spring. That's fine. Absolutely fine. But what they may do is take half of the amount that you were eligible for and allocate it to that particular semester. So if you were eligible for, let's say, $1,000 of a scholarship or a grant, they can just say, okay, we're going to take $500 of the grant or the scholarship, only if it's tied to the FAFSA, and we're going to apply it to the spring semester. So you can defer it, yes, but you're going to need the approval from the institution themselves. But also understand that if you're deferring any more than a year, you're more likely going to have to reply.
Okay. The next question was, what is the due date of the FAFSA? I actually addressed this view and said typically it's June 30th for the following school year. Is that still correct? Or has COVID changed some things? I'm not sure.
We haven't done anything on that in regards to the June 30th deadline, but I will say this. The due date of the FAFSA really depends upon where you live, what kind of financial aid programs you are applying for. Because yes, it is. If you're going for, let's say, if you're a senior in school right now, you just graduated class 2020, you're going to enroll in classes, or you plan to enroll in class at a college university in the fall of 2020. Our due date is June 30th, 2021. However, states have deadlines where you need to complete the FAFSA by. Schools have deadlines. So you really, to take advantage of all the financial aid programs that are out there, you really need to complete it as early as possible and to try to meet those earlier deadlines. You don't want to wait to June 30th, 2021, because you're gonna have missed out on additional funding you could have received.
Okay. The next question is, how is the EFC calculated?
Well, the EFC is calculated using an abundance of our algorithms and formulas focused around the income and assets of an individual, how many students are enrolled in college, and we take all of this information to determine what is your EFC. Now, when we look at assets, it's primarily looking at, does the student have a 529 plan that they're the account holder on? Not necessarily that it's just because it was placed into their name. If they're not the account holder, we're looking for the name of the account holder. So if it's grandmother, they're not putting that on there. We look at this information and make a determination of what the EFC is. So there are some times that parents can earn over $100,000. They can earn over $200,000, and their EFC is less than $2,000. There are many cases like that. However, let's say, for example, if you are making over $100,000 and you have medical bills, well, guess what? You want to contact the financial aid office, and it's important you understand that part, because the FAFSA doesn't ask that. But what the institution can do is perform what's called a professional judgment, and then use that and bring down your EFC. So if there's a question that's not asked that you believe is very important for someone to know, then when determining your EFC, contact the financial aid office and make sure you have some documentation to back it up.
Okay. We have another question from a YouTube viewer. Actually, no, this is someone in our room. What's the difference between the Stafford loan and the Sallie Mae loan?
Well, when we were in, and for those of you that are old enough to remember this, in the late 90s, when we were all, or even the mid to late 90s, when we were all headed off and going off to college, and we had to complete the FAFSA on paper documents. If you are the younger generation, you haven't experienced that, and I'm glad you didn't. Sallie Mae was a loan, and it continues to be a loan servicer. Okay. Now, when you were looking at the federal loans, we identify our loans strictly by subsidized and unsubsidized. However, these loans are serviced by companies. So when you can have direct loans, you can have federal student loan. These loan servicers are the individuals that service the subsidized and unsubsidized loans. But also understand this: there are companies that offer private student loans that are not federal loans. Sallie Mae does offer private student loans. So the loan types, you have to look at what are the loan types and who's going to service your loan, because then that's going to be the individuals who you pay that loan back to. So again, if it's a subsidized or unsubsidized loan, you want to make sure you look at who's servicing your federal loan. If you have went outside of the FAFSA and applied for private loan, it could be through a bank, it could be through an organization, then that's who you're going to be paying back that loan to, unless they have sold your loan to another entity.
Okay. And we have a couple of more questions, and then we're going to move into my part of the presentation. So if there are any additional questions, we'll make sure that we look at them on YouTube. You can still put them here. We'll make sure that those questions get answered. So the last two questions, how does one become Pell eligible? Is there a process for that?
Well, it's becoming Pell eligible is after the information on the FAFSA has been inputted completely, the student has been evaluated, and the EFC is to be considered under 5,000. Then the student will be looked at and determined, of course, with other things as well, citizenship as well, that will let you know on the student aid report if they are eligible for a Pell. Now, let's say you look at your student aid report and you have an EFC of 8,000, and you think that EFC is way too high. Because I would suggest two things. Number one, double check the FAFSA, because you might have placed in an extra zero somewhere. There are many times we look at FAFSAs and the student's income is over 60,000. The student's amount in their balance of their checking balance is about $60 or $6,500. All of that makes a difference. So when you want to go back inside of your FAFSA, make sure all the information is accurate. And even after that, if you feel it's not truly reflective of your financial situation, your financial profile, your family, then you want to make sure you contact the financial aid office. In other words, what I'm telling you is that as students are evaluated for the Pell Grant while they're completing the FAFSA, then if you don't feel that if you feel that you should have received it but did not, you want to make sure you follow up with the financial aid office, because there may be something that is missing that you guys aren't putting in there, or should have put in there, or need to delete.
Okay. All right. Certainly, that was a lot of information, Isaiah. We truly appreciate you for going over those so many details and rules. And please make sure that you're following the social media pages and definitely reach out to FSA if you have any questions. I'd like to go over, we're still going over financial aid, but what I would like to go over is, give me 1 second, just need to close this up. So what I'm going to go over is how to attain money for college through scholarships. There's so much information on the internet for finding scholarships, but a lot of the times we overlook the scholarships that are sitting right in our faces. So I want to start off with talking about the obvious search engines. If you all are seniors or rising seniors, you've certainly seen some of these websites before: scholarships.com, My Scholly, the Scholly app, Unigo. All of these are great resources for finding scholarships, but it can become super overwhelming because they're literally showing you so many scholarships, thousands and thousands of scholarships. So what I wanted to highlight is where you can find scholarships that are right under your nose. Okay, so we are based in the DC metro area. For those of you who are tuned in who live in the District, Maryland, and Northern Virginia, and there are a plethora of scholarships everywhere. And one place that you can look, and even if you're not located in this area, there are some scholarships opportunities that may be in your state by the same shopping mall developments. So as an example, for those of us who are in here and we like to shop and we like to buy things, Pentagon City, Potomac Mills, Arundel Mills, the shopping mall developer, Simon Property Group, they offer scholarships. You just need to be a resident that lives near that shopping mall, apply to their program and enroll. I believe enrollment starts in the 10th or 11th grade, but they also have community scholarships for students who may not have enrolled in their programs early. So the next time you're in a mall and you see those signs for Simon Property, check them out and see what they have. Also, the developers of Tyson's Corner, if you are an employee there or you're an employee and you're a dependent there, they also offer scholarships. And I just want to add this tidbit: Simon Property, they have malls in 38 states, 12 locations in the DMV. Again, so the next time that you're out, find out who are the developers of this shopping mall. Do you all offer scholarships? What do I need to do? An easy $1,000 to $5,000 to pay for college. Housing developments. For those of you who may be tuned in and you guys live in Prince George's County or you live in Baltimore, there's a housing development, Southern Management. They offer scholarships for students, and some of their scholarships, you do not have to be a resident on their property. You simply need to be a resident of that county. And as an example, they offer $6,000 to students who are residents in Prince George's County going to PGCC. They have a partnership with American University up to $5,000, and they offer $1,500 to any accredited college or university. And that's just an example for those of us who live in the area. If you are someone who shops for apartments, or even if you just come across the magazine, the Apartment Guide, the national magazine, they offer scholarships. It is a nationwide competition, up to $2,500 in scholarship money. Again, you don't have to be a resident for any of the apartments that they advertise. You just simply need to apply for the opportunity. Utility companies. Most of us like to have water and gas and electric. Your local utility companies offer scholarships. Again, for my Maryland residents who utilize WSSC, they have amazing scholarships. And I will say that they tend to have they tend to favor students who are going into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These scholarships tend to be competitive. They do like to see students who are well-rounded, at least a 3.0, and they are involved and they are taking up activities and courses to show that they're on a serious track for STEM. Simply go to their website, and sometimes, and the reason why I want to point these opportunities out is that they're not always in black and white. You'll literally walk past that opportunity all the time. So for those of you who are rising 12th graders and you notice, hey, Pepco used to do a scholarship. I'm not sure if they do that anymore, but WSSC, Pepco, for those of you who may be tuned in and you live in California, or you have family members who are rising seniors, and or if they're already in college and they're looking for scholarship money. The money in California, their scholarships are pretty huge, up from $1,000 to $10,000. So look at those things that you are going past every day. When you're opening your bills and you may be sighing, you might want to have the thought like, wait, do they give out scholarships? And 9 times out of 10, if you put the company's name in and put scholarships, you're going to find some information, whether they give out scholarships to high school students or college students. Your local grocery store chains. Again, for those who are in the DMV area, Safeway, Giant Food, these chains give out scholarships. Some of them are merit-based, some of them are merit plus need. They also partner with organizations such as the United Negro College Fund, the Greater Washington Urban League, to give away scholarships to deserving students. Harris Teeter. I love Harris Teeter. I don't know if anybody else does. They give out scholarships, and some of their scholarships are actually for college students, as well as Kroger. So the next time that you're in a store, and even if it's not a big chain store, sometimes it can be your local mom and pop store. They may not have that information right out front, but if you ask, hey, do you guys do scholarships? Do you raise money for current college students or high school seniors? Don't pass up that opportunity, because if you look at it this way, you're constantly putting your money into them so that their business can function. And this is your opportunity to take the opportunity to get money for college. Banks and credit unions. Families miss this one all the time. If you have a credit union account in Maryland or DC, the Credit Union Foundation gives away scholarships every single year. And I meet so many families that have no clue about it. The PNC Bank, the PNC Student Lending Scholarship Sweepstakes. And I wanted to make this clear. It is not a loan. It is a sweepstakes scholarship. And I will say that is not a scholarship. Those aren't the type of scholarships that usually when I work one-on-one with clients that we do a lot of sweepstakes scholarships. But this one is legitimate, and it is from PNC Bank. And it's very easy. There's not even an essay involved. But again, if you are a member of a credit union, and if you're banking and you've never asked your bank, do they give away scholarships? That may be a conversation that you may want to have. Just call and say, hey, do you guys fund students who are going to college? Usually you do have to be a member. With some credit unions, the student has to have an account as well. So it just depends, but definitely ask your local banks, do they give scholarship money out? And there are some companies that give away scholarships and they're right in your home. Procter & Gamble awards big scholarships every year. And these are the people that make Gain, Febreze, Charmin Tissue, Clorox. Clorox gives out scholarships. Mattel. I was a big fan of Barbie, not so much Fisher-Price, but Hot Wheels. These companies give out scholarships. BP Gas. Always, they give out scholarships to students who are on a STEM track. Coca-Cola, I'm sure that you all probably have heard of the Coca-Cola scholarship. It's usually due October 31st of every year. Highly competitive scholarship for students who have competitive GPAs, community service activities, and competitive courses. It is rigorous, but it's also a very heavy scholarship. Now, who should be looking for scholarships? And I think this list pretty much covers everyone. Federal government employees. There's something called the Federal Employee Education Assistance Fund. And that money, is allocated. Well, it's a scholarship. You still have to apply, and it is competitive, but that money is set aside for dependents of federal government employees who have students that are college bound. Students who are minorities by race, by gender, by sexual orientation. There are many scholarships out there for you. Military families, STEM-bound students, and I want to emphasize that for our STEM-bound students, simply because there's a push for students to get engaged with STEM, not only in high school, but to continue that in their post-secondary education. And if you are strong and serious about STEM, there are many companies that are willing to give you so much money to go to college and finish. If you are a student or you have a student that has a documented disability, there are scholarships for students who have disabilities. This year, one of our clients has a documented disability and was afforded a $10,000 scholarship from the National Center of Learning Disabilities. Employed students, if you plan on going to college and keeping your job may do something called tuition reimbursement. Self-employed students, there are scholarships for students who are young entrepreneurs. And I can say from my experience, there are many, but at the same time, it's not a lot. So that is a great opportunity to get scholarship money. If you are a student in foster care, student athletes, of course, and international students. I know that's a worry for some students who are deemed international, but there are some scholarships and some colleges that will fully fund your education. And before we go, I want to talk about our scholarship boot camp. So with all that information, with finding scholarships at your local bank, at your grocery store, at your shopping mall, what we do is have a scholarship boot camp service. And in that service, we teach you competitive scholarship application packaging, strong essay writing, strengthening your resume, advising you on course selection for high school and your extracurricular activities, financial aid counseling, recommendation coaching, as in who you should really be getting recommendation letters from, and interview preparation, because a lot of scholarships, especially with COVID, when you're moving forward to the second and third and final rounds, they want to have these virtual interviews with you so they can meet who are they possibly awarding money to. This year, 67% of our clients did not qualify for need-based scholarships, and 33% were need-based. So that just shows that we're able to service everybody. But a lot of the clients that we do get, they are eliminated from many scholarships that are based on need, and a lot of those scholarships are pretty heavy. 100% of scholarships are thoroughly researched and matched to students based on academic, financial, and demographic information. So before you sign up for our boot camp, there is a consultation. There is a lot of information that we like to have so that if we do move forward, we don't just have you applying for each and every scholarship that you see. We want you to value your time, value our time, and match you with applying for scholarships that match your endeavors, where you are and where you want to go. And because we're very delicate with that process, a lot of the times, most of the times, our students are able to win some scholarships that we have advised for them to apply to. 100% of our clients with continued services, meaning 25 hours or more than quadrupled the return on their investment in counseling. And what I've done is put a few examples of some of our clients this year. We had one client that invested $500 in college counseling and was awarded $5,000 in scholarships. We had another client, a merit client, did not qualify for need-based aid. They spent $800 in return. They got $7,500 in scholarship money. We had another student, another client, $400 in counseling and was awarded $10,000 plus in scholarships. Just got notification that they won another scholarship today. So we make sure that you get the best bang for your buck. If you're invested in our services, we invest in you, and you're definitely going to see a return on that. 100% of our clients were accepted into and awarded scholarships from advised post-secondary colleges and universities. So not only is there a scholarship focus, there's a college application focus. We're looking at their acceptance rate, what the student has done for the last 3 or 4 years in high school. What is the likelihood that this school is a match for you academically, socially? There's a holistic style of counseling. It's not just about putting applications in front of you and saying you apply. It's a very family involved, well-rounded method of college counseling. And because of that, the schools that we do advise, the students are actually accepted. And not only are they accepted, but they're going to schools, and we're having them look at schools that are financially feasible based on their situation. Again, holistic and instructional based college counseling. I do come from an instructional background, and I always say that I'm a teacher first. So when we're doing our counseling, you do have assignments, you do get feedback, you do get critiqued, you do your assignments over if we know that you can do a little bit better. We take all of those things into consideration because simply this is going to be the trajectory of the rest of your life. And we have a 96% retention rate. So that means that our clients usually come back to us. 41% of our external scholarships that were awarded were national competitive scholarships, and local scholarships were awarded as well. We're going to highlight that in a second. And these are just some of the scholarships that our students won that were national. The Prudential Spirit of Community, and that's the Prudential Company and Ford Scholarship, Hispanic Heritage Scholarship, the AXA, Comcast, the National Honor Society Scholarship. All of those scholarships were national scholarships. And one scholarship we had a client who was the national winner. That means that we prepped them so well that they beat out everyone else in the nation to win that scholarship. And we also had some notable local wins too, from the MGM, Prince George's County Local Development, the Junior League, and the Urban League. So for those of you that attended, I'm so glad that you chose to join us. There's so much going on. Thank you for coming. If you are interested in services, please visit our website, Education Prep Plus, to get a free consultation. And if you attended this seminar, whether on webinar, through our Click meeting or YouTube, there's a 10% discount. If there are any questions, I'll take them now. Okay, I see one question, and we're just about 3 minutes before we have to shut it down. And one question, how can you find specific scholarships if you don't have a 3.0 GPA? There are scholarships for students who have less than a 3.0. There are some scholarships that don't require a GPA at all. What we would do if you were to work with us is that we take that into consideration, and we look into our resources, we look into our databases, we look into some of the things that we all talked about with you all today, and we find those scholarships for you. But again, as I put at the beginning of the presentation, there are several websites where you can find those scholarships, and you can set the filters to look for scholarships that match your GPA. It's the same system that we use, and they use that system too. So I would say definitely set your filters as you're looking for your scholarships, and you can definitely find scholarships if you have less than the 3.0. I've had students that have won multiple scholarships and they did not have a 3.0. However, they did have activities, they were in clubs, they took unique classes, they had a lot of community service hours. So if you don't have a 3.0, at the very least, you should be supplementing that with something, a job, an internship, community service, creating clubs at your school, being on student government. There has to be something to kind of balance that out. Okay, the next question is it too late for someone entering college in the fall to use your services? No, but we are on a limit with students. So I would advise, let's talk offline. You can send me an email, or you can visit the website and fill out an inquiry, and we can discuss what's available for you. But we are preparing for the class of 2021 and the class of 2022. Okay. Well, the time is now 6:15. That concludes the webinar. If you, can the presentation be shared? Patricia, let's talk offline. You can send me an email or visit the website, and we can discuss of how I can get some of this information to you. I want to thank you all for coming and joining our webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Federal Student Aid in regards to federal funds. Reach out to me in regards to scholarships and any of our services for finding money for college, as well as help with college applications. Thank you guys for coming. I'm signing off.